beautiful Columbus room here in Union Station in Washington, D.C., or if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, we're glad you're here. And this event is all about celebrating the incredible power of recovery and recognizing the amazing recovery community that makes it all possible. And that includes you. Our recovery community is people in recovery, family, friends, and allies like all of you. So I'm pleased to welcome you here today. My name is Patty McCarthy. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Faces and Voices of Recovery. And we are proud to host the Recovery Month Luncheon this year. And just a few welcoming remarks and introductions. I want to just say that this is the kickoff of a month-long celebration of recovery for National Recovery Month. And we talk about it's been known as National Recovery Month, but I want you to know that this is really global. This is around the world. Recovery Month is now known in other countries, and we at Faces and Voices are supporting that growth with our partners, Faces and Voices of Recovery in Canada, Brazil, South Africa, United Kingdom. This movement is worldwide, so we are extremely proud of that and the work we've done to support that. I want to give a quick shout out to the staff that have organized this: Lindsay, Keegan, Amanda, Chris, Oliver, Tamika. They are all here today, and you've had some interaction with them, so thank you for your work organizing this luncheon, and also many of the events that are happening throughout the month. I also want to recognize board members and volunteers, so a big hello and thank you to Jeremiah, who came in here for this today, as well as Cindy, our volunteer locally, you met at the desk. So thank you to all of you. This Recovery Month has been observed since 1989. We are proud to help carry that forward. Recovery Month's mission is really threefold: to promote evidence-based services and recovery practices, to recognize the dedication of the service providers, all of you that are working at or leading agencies that employ service workers. So thank you to the workforce out there. Big thank you. And also putting a face and a voice on recovery by raising awareness and reducing stigma around addiction and mental health. These are the core, this is the core mission of what Recovery Month is for all of us. I wanted to also acknowledge that during Recovery Month, International Recovery Day takes place on September 30th. And so, again, along the lines of being international, we have the founder, the brilliant founder of International Recovery Day here with us, John Winslow. John, raise your hand. So Faces and Voices has been honored and proud to be able to carry that forward as well. There is incredible synergy between International Recovery Day and what we're doing across the world, really. It's incredible. Faces and Voices started in 2001, so just over 20 years, and have been a partner in Recovery Month efforts with SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, as a planning partner for many, many years. And so we value the collaboration with other national organizations in our partnership. I also wanted to mention that we have these Recovery is For pins that are on your lanyards. And this is really special. It's something you can write in there that recovery is for. I put my kids and my grandkids. I want intergenerational recovery to be a reality here, instead of focusing on the intergenerational cycle of addiction. We need to flip that narrative and make it a recovery, all about intergenerational recovery. So please use the dry erase markers on your tables or the permanent markers out front, and put what recovery is for you on that. I also want to mention that if you registered with any special dietary needs, there is I guess a card inside your name tag that you should put at your table, so that the wait staff, the servers will know that you had requested a special dietary needs. We have a wonderful agenda today. The lineup includes speeches from a number of experts in the field. We have a spoken word performance, and following this today is the first ever SAMHSA walk, and Faces and Voices is partnering to make this walk possible. Immediately following the luncheon, we'll gather right out front on Columbus Circle at 12:30, so you have a little bit of time to mingle and network here. I mean, at 2:30. Yes, thank you, Keegan. At 2:30, so we'll be closing here at 2. But most of all, I just want to thank everyone for being part of this event here today, coming out in this heat and joining us. And for those of you watching us on live stream, we wish we were all here in person. And as we grow and make these recovery months possible, you will be participating in many ways in your own communities. So without further ado, I want to introduce you. Oh, one other thing, very important. I am not going to do this without recognizing our very important sponsors. So this year, this Recovery Month luncheon, as well as we are working towards a sustainable recovery month throughout the entire year. So our sponsors are really important to make that happen. So I want to thank All Rise, which is the new name of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, for their sponsorship. Our friends at Forest Marsh Group, again, another wonderful group that we are partnering with and enjoy that work, that relationship there. Our silver sponsors include the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, CADCA, the Recovery Research Institute, and the Recovery Cafe Network. So thank you, all of you, and for being here today. Our bronze sponsors include Unity Recovery, ASAM, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and the Legal Action Center. So thank you for your sponsorship. So now I'd like to introduce our first speaker today. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Gupta since he's been in office, and actually before he began serving as the director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. ONDCP is a critical component of the Executive Office of the President, coordinates our nation's drug control strategy, including a annual strategy that we are very excited and have been honored to be able to participate in developing the recovery component of that. And for the first time ever, seeing the importance of recovery and recovery support services in that drug control strategy. But this office focuses on federal policies on prevention, harm reduction, treatment, recovery support, and much more. So Dr. Gupta is not only an administrator, he's a practitioner. He's dedicated his career to public health and safety in roles that span from the local, state, and now national level. With over 25 years of experience as a primary care physician, he has served in communities ranging from small towns to big, busy cities. I wanted to also just say that Dr. Gupta really is a thought leader and a champion for recovery. He practices what he preaches. Under his leadership, the Office of Drug Control Strategy has further embedded recovery support services and harm reduction programs. He provides medication-assisted treatment for people with opioid use disorder and has been instrumental in expanding harm reduction programs. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Rahul Gupta.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really hoping that you're going to be able to eat while I speak. Thank you, Patty, for the kind introduction and your leadership here at Faces and Voices Recovery, and your staff is really critical for your partnership and the work you're doing to help build a recovery-ready nation. I also want to say also good morning to everybody and my federal partners is here as well, Dr. Delphin Rittman and others that we work with very closely. I mean, that's one of the secret sauces of making good federal policy is having good partners. I bring you greetings from President Biden and Vice President Harris. I see here that there's so many familiar faces, of course, and I also appreciate the fact that that you know, as Patty mentioned, that recovery is a top priority for the Biden-Harris administration. As you might know that there's a little roll-up thing on your tables. That is the proclamation of that President Biden has declared September as the National Recovery Month. And hope you get to take that home with you. But let me speak about a key message in that proclamation. And I'll quote directly from the President's words. Quote, during National Recovery Month, we celebrate the more than 20 million Americans who have had the courage to seek help for substance use disorder, showing millions others that recovery is possible. We honor their resilience and recommitment to making sure that every American has access to the services and support they need to rebuild lives of purpose and hope, close quote. And I say this because, as you know, the president means what he says and says what he means. This is a real commitment, and that is why it's really important for me to be here with you today and with everyone here who are working to put thousands and thousands of Americans every single day into recovery. You know that recovery transforms lives, but also builds community. And right now, you all are needed more than ever. And I say this with a level of sense of urgency. You're the power of healing at a time when 110,000 Americans were lost to addiction, overdoses, poisonings last year. Now, I've done the math. That's an American being lost every 5 minutes around the clock, 300 a day. And that's why it brings us to a sense of urgency, because these people, as you know, are family members of ours. There's brothers, sisters, neighbors. These are people that are employees. These are folks that are being lost in the prime of their life, but that's one missing seat at the dinner table, one missing anniversary or birthday that we will not be celebrating with their presence. And these are the unprecedented challenges we face, but it is your work that goes in every single day that makes things happen. Let me speak a little bit about recovery and what we're doing as an administration. This, as I mentioned, is a top priority for President. It's a priority because he often talks about Bidenomics. Behind Bidenomics is the ability for Americans to get back to work and be purposeful in their life. So we know, as Patty mentioned, what the office does, but I will tell you that since day one, the president has been committed to bringing down overdoses, supporting recovery, and holding those responsible for this. But he knows that we can't just focus on supply, as has happened in the past. We must also focus on demand. Why? Because we cannot treat dead people. That's as simple as I can say. Now, it's common sense, and that's why the president's strategy goes after two key drivers, the untreated addiction and the drug trafficking profits. They're both same sides, two sides of the same coin. Now, let me talk about the historic investments we're making for addiction so people can begin their recovery journey, and they have the supports they need in recovery. And therefore, the continuum, the full continuum of care addressing these challenges is very important. So on the public health side, let me start with prevention. Prevention is so critical because we have to stop use before it starts. And especially in youth, and this has been historically underfunded, and that's a challenge. Now, that is exactly why in the 24 president's budget, it calls for a 30% increase in support for prevention. And our Drug-Free Communities Coalitions program, that is in 750 communities, affects 67 million people in 50 states, is the evidence, one of the evidence-based methods of preventing or delaying youth substance use. Now, next, Harm reduction. We know that harm reduction has been long stigmatized and underutilized, but we recognize it is the best strategy for saving lives today. And that's why you see our federal partner, this administration, is the first one to embrace it as federal policy. You know, starting this week, naloxone will be available over the counter right next to Tylenol and Motrin. And there's more coming. And I know that our partners at SAMHSA, in the leadership of Dr. Rittman, are working hard to make sure our states have the resources to get naloxone out there as well. Also, one of the things that when I began this job, people said, why aren't we reaching and how can we reach more young people? Through communicators, not those that look like me, but those that look like them, young people. So we've put together a social media campaign with Ad Council that looks at two things: warning young people to the dangers of fentanyl and telling them, sharing with them how carrying naloxone is an important piece because they can be the hero, not just for themselves, but for someone else. Now, that is a Real Deal on Fentanyl campaign. It's a Real Deal on Fentanyl.com. And we've got 1.8 billion impressions already. And that's important because that means these young, trusted messengers, the influencers, are talking to young people. And that's what we want. On social media, by the way, as was mentioned, that how important it is to reach through social media. And just last week, we had at the White House, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, as well as the CDC director, that joined me to announce new funding for this campaign. But overall, $450 million of new funding was announced last week. Now, we all know that the treatment side has been too difficult to access for too long. And that's why this administration has committed $83 billion, $83 billion with a B, for treatment in this administration. Now, that's a record funding for states to expand access and remove federal regulations that stood in the way of prescribers treating patients for addiction. By the way, the $83 billion is 42% higher than the previous 4 years. So there's a real sense of investing into communities. That is an important piece of making sure we're saving lives. So now we've opened up treatment for opioid use disorder to millions of Americans, and we gotta keep pushing forward. Now, when it comes to recovery, we know that we haven't been doing enough for recovery supports available to people in the past. And that's why, with your help, we're working to build a recovery-ready nation. Now, what does that look like, you might ask? It looks like a safe and supportive place for people to live. I'm a physician. I know about treatment, but you know what? Recovery is a lot more than treatment. It's about employment, especially when around half of the country receives healthcare through their employer. It's about childcare, about housing, about food insecurity, about education and economic opportunity, and so much more. And here's the kicker. When people get the support they need, they can do amazing things. And look around the room and you see yourselves. There's so many that have been able to get the support. We want to make sure that everybody in this country who needs those supports that I mentioned get it when they need it, so they can not just survive, but thrive. Let me talk a little bit, because we cannot give up on people. This is a very core element of the president. We cannot give up. We've got to give the ability for people to make a difference in their lives. And so your work is critical to not only helping save lives, but get people back to where they need to be. Whether you work in community, you work with veterans, national level, state level, local level, you can make sure that people are following your footsteps. People are working to support the work that is happening of Recovery Ready Nation, and as Patty mentioned, internationally now being recognized. And how do we do that? First of all, let me start first we can also support recovery in workplace. Now, everyone in this room knows that people in recovery are dedicated, motivated, and hardworking. People in recovery are the backbone of America's economy. And how do I know that? Because I know this personally, because we have several people in recovery on staff at the White House working right now. And they're some of the best employees we have. And also know that employment could be critical and central to sustaining recovery, not just achieving it. And that substance use and untreated addiction are very costly to employers and to the economy. It's good business sense. So now we've launched a recovery-ready workplace resource hub at the Department of Labor's website. That gives tools to employers to figure out how expensive it is and how to become recovery-friendly workplaces. This hub is laying out steps to recruiting and employing people in recovery, preventing substance use in workforce, breaking the stigma, and so much more. So this work we talk about is actually walking the talk. We're also starting to apply these principles and policies in federal workplaces as well. And here's what I tell employers when I talk to them, that if you do this, a few things are gonna happen. If you as a business do this, here's what will happen. You'll build a stronger culture and improve your bottom line. It's good business sense. Employees will know that it's safe to reach out for help with substance use disorder when they need to. And people in recovery will be able to help create recovery support environment in the workplace. And you then will start attracting more talent from people in recovery. And so everybody wins as a result. Now, another way, I talked about the workplace, another way we can support recovery is making sure that people can access the tools they need to succeed, and that includes people who are in custody, incarcerated. Does anyone know how many people in one day, any day in America are in prisons and jails? 2 million. Too many. 2 million, to be very precise. And that's too many. 2 million. And here's the thing, 2 out of 3 of those are in custody either because of or due to substance use disorder, but too few are getting the treatment, the help they need. Now, we estimate, can you estimate for me how many people do you think are dying after reentry each year from jails and prisons in this country? That's a stat you're not going to find very commonly available, but we've done the numbers. Anybody? Numbers, because numbers are huge. So we believe it's up to 27,000 people, up to 27,000 people each year that are dying after reentry. And yet, substance use treatment is not available at the same time. Now, if substance use treatment was fully available in carceral settings and immediately upon release, this alone, in our estimation, could prevent 16,000 deaths a year. 16,000 fatal drug overdose and poisonings a year could be prevented. Think about that, out of 100,000. So this is why the administration has recently let states know that they can apply for Medicaid funding to use before reentry and set up the recovery once they're released. And we have 15 states that have already applied, and 2, California and Washington, have received those waivers. And that's also why the Federal Bureau of Prisons will be offering in-house treatment to all 122 facilities across the country. And therefore, supporting these social determinants of health can be so successful. And sometimes it starts in the criminal justice system. And to this end, I will tell you that the federal government is putting our money where our mouth is. Just last week on the announcements, we announced that including $57 million to connect Americans to substance use disorder and recovery services when talk about people in carceral settings. Now, The funding is going to support recovery centers, peer recovery support services, treatment and recovery workforce, and so much more. And President Biden has called on Congress historic budget, $46 billion. That's about $3 billion over the last year's budget. And it includes a 10% block grant set aside for recovery support services as well. And that's what you get from your relentless advocacy on the issue. That 10% set aside is going to help fund states to go towards recovery support services. And I want to just take a moment here to recognize the hard work of everyone here who's done work to make this happen. So, thank you. Now, of course, it's going to be up to Congress to make it happen. And so, those advocates who are here, your work isn't done yet. But we stand with you, all of us in the federal government, with you and support you in your advocacy. Now, thanks to these efforts, the work that you do in communities across America each and every day, we are making progress. And this conversation happens at every level in government, but also in White House. Overdoses flattened in 22 after sharp rises in 2019 to 2021. I can tell you there's a lot more dispensing of naloxone, there's lower price, over the counter, treatment access has increased, number of things that point to that. But we can't stop. The bottom line here is, it is not time to spike the ball. We've got to keep pushing with a level of urgency. So because we have so many more lives to save and keep more families whole. So I want to thank you again to dedicating yourselves to making sure that people who can follow your footsteps, and I want you to know that everybody at ONDCP, everyone here is on your side. And I would say the same with SAMHSA, and I would say with HHS larger efforts. There's a lot of people that understand, feel, and support you. And that includes the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States. We need your voice. We need your voice to be heard both during Recovery Month, but every month after that as well. We need you to keep showing that people with SUD can stay alive and thrive. We need you to keep sharing your stories with lawmakers and public health officials to build support for recovery, including the 10% set aside. And we need you to continue to work to sustain these support services. We got to welcome everyone on the recovery journey, because we are stronger together. And in doing so, I think, we all believe that we can make our communities stronger, we can make our country stronger, and hopefully, Patty, we can make the world a stronger place one day. Because you know what? At the end of the day, this isn't a red state or a blue state issue. This is America's issue. And working together, we can beat this. And this is part of President Biden's unity agenda. And I want to end with this. President Biden said in this year's proclamation that you have a copy of. Quote, "We want everyone to know that they are never alone. As a nation working together, we can make recovery real for more Americans," close quote. So thank you for stepping up to be a part of the solution to this crisis. And thank you for helping every single day have more Americans join the recovery journey and become successful. Thank you so much for having me. We have a special presentation now. Patty, come over. I'm going to be presenting a framed proclamation here at the National Recovery Month 2023 by the President of the United States of America and signed by Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for that enlightening and inspiring talk. We're always honored to hear such powerful words from the office and the administration. So at this time, we're going to prepare for our next lineup of speakers and get ready to hear from a special performance. While this is happening, you're going to notice the staff coming in, exchanging your salad plates for some lunch plates. Don't let us stop you from eating. Please continue to eat as the day is getting carried away, but because we'll be done here before you know it. For those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Keegan Wicks. I'm fortunate to be your MC here today, and I was a young person when I established my recovery. I accessed treatment services at the ripe age of 17 years old. And it wasn't until later in life that I heard somebody say that recovery should never be a matter of luck. And in hindsight, a lot of the services that I had access to was really a matter of luck and happenstance. It happened that people were around me that could provide the resources that I needed to succeed and ultimately to be able to be here with you today. And so it's the people in this room, it's the people outside this room watching at home that make recovery possible and make it so that it's no longer a matter of luck. And so as we get started, I'm happy to introduce our special performance. So this special performance is spoken word titled Be Brave. This piece encapsulates the courage and tenacity that are crucial in the journey of recovery. She is art. She's healing. She's inspiring. Influence, advocacy, entertainment, change, love, and light. All things wrapped into a 120-pound frame that packs a powerful punch. Equipped with dynamic delivery and a no-nonsense approach to the truth, Yosis speaks in a large spectrum of subjects to widely diverse audiences, infusing spirit and lyrics. Cassandra Yosis Bingham is a multi-award-winning national spoken word artist, creative, and humanitarian. She has been recognized as an esteemed leader in the community and as a self-proclaimed student of life, who's learning, living, and breathing the power of words and expression as effective means of healing for herself and every living thing that nears her. Yosis has over a decade of professional experience working directly with youth in foster care systems who live with extreme behavioral health and mental health challenges. She uses her lived experience to create, teach, and practice innovative approaches to behavioral management, crisis prevention, and personal empowerment. It's with great pleasure that I present to you Yosis performing her original piece, Be Brave.
Be brave. Believe in big. Dig within, then dig deeper, hug tighter, smile bigger, take risks, follow your dreams, fall on your knees and pray. Fight back, do more, bring peace, be change, become someone you admire, become the someone that you have always wanted to be. Work hard. It's okay to crawl before you walk, stumble, fall, get up. Wipe yourself off. Stumble, fall, get up. Wipe yourself off. Stumble, fall, get up. Until you don't even wipe yourself off anymore, you just walk. You just keep going. Never give up. Be a source of light. Be bright in the shade. Be bold. Be brave. Be a fountain. Be a spring in a world full of drains. Love harder. Seek the unknown. Walk, run, climb. Put one foot in front of the other. Baby, one step at a time, for you will stumble, fall, get up. Kick up some dust. The dirt is part of your journey. Embrace the journey. Along the way, talk to strangers. Make friends with strangers. Make family with strangers. Be happy. Seek passion. Be passion. Rest your body. Train your spirit. Listen. Heal. Push boundaries. Break chains. Stand your ground. Expand your territory. Explore life. And think something. bigger than you for it. Look at your breath. Lose your mind just to find it again. Take your time. Explore yourself. Explore someone else. Bring hope. Touch souls. Dare to experience trust. Love yourself when no one else does. You claim victories that you cannot see yet. Be confident that they are coming because they are coming. You be so full of strength that it makes everyone who is weak highly uncomfortable with your very being. Change their minds. Teach something, turn heads, be of service, be willing to learn, dare to know you are a butterfly when the whole world sees a worm. Transform, fly, be the best that you can be, then be better. Inhale, let things go. Forgive, be extraordinary, be brave enough to live, jump in puddles, run in the rain. Don't you be afraid to jump. Stumble, fall, get up, be brave, walk through flames. Don't you be afraid at all. You be what fear is afraid of. Be beautiful, be powerful, be contagious, be courageous for you. You may stumble, you may fall, and you will get up, and you will show this world everything you are made of, because you only get this chance one time.
Let's now welcome our next guest, Dr. Miriam Delphin-Rittman. Dr. Delphin-Rittman brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in evidence-based treatment and recovery practices as the Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and serves as the Administrator for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. She previously served as Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and served in this role for 6 years. Her prior positions held at DMHAS includes Deputy Commissioner, Senior Policy Advisor, and Director of the Department's Office of Multicultural Healthcare Equity. In her role as Commissioner, Dr. Delphin-Rittman was committed to promoting recovery-oriented, integrated, and culturally responsive services and systems that foster dignity, respect, and meaningful community inclusion. Prior to her current appointment, Dr. Delphin-Rittman was an adjunct associate professor at Yale University, where she served on the faculty for the past 20 years. While at Yale, Dr. Delphin-Rittman served as the Director of Cultural Competence and Research Consultation with the Yale University Program for Recovery and Community Health. Through her 20-year career in the behavioral health field, Dr. Delphin-Rittman has extensive experience in the design, evaluation, and administration of mental health, substance use, and prevention services and systems, and has received several awards for advancing policy in these areas. Most recently, she's received a 2019 State Service Award from the National Association of State Drug and Alcohol Directors and the 2016 Mental Health Award for Excellence from the United Nations Committee on Mental Health. Please help me welcome Dr. Delphin-Rittman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. What an awesome group. What great energy. I know we have a number of folks joining us online as well. And so really just thrilled to be able to say Happy Recovery Month. So, woohoo! Yes. Happy Recovery Month. You know, I have to say, we've been so looking forward to this gathering. Really want to thank Patty and the Faces and Voices team for the collaboration. Helping us to put this event and others together this month. I know many are going to be participating in the walk, so one thing I will say is please drink up, hydrate, hydrate, because it is a toasty one that we have for today. But also want to thank the Faces and Voices team for helping us to put that together as well. You know, I've been asked to just do some updates and just to share a little bit about some of our recovery work. As you know, recovery is such a commitment within SAMHSA, also across the administration. We have many members of our Office of Recovery team here with us. Paulo Del Vecchio is the director, and many of our members of the Recovery Office. So I want to give them a hand as well. They have so just been in the zone from day one. It's probably been about a year since we announced the office being fully staffed. And talk about hit the ground running, like they hit the ground running and really have not stopped running. And so just really appreciate all of their efforts around just advancing recovery and partnering with so many of you who are both with us here in person and online as well. So I have a number of just quick slides and quick updates I'm going to go through just to be able to let folks know some of the things we've got going on that we're excited about that's coming up. And I think my slides are here. Yeah, so we'll go right to the next slide. We'll go to that first one. And so, one thing I wanted to share is, we have, as you know, our NSDA, our National Survey on Drug Use and Health. And for the first time, we'll be reporting recovery-related data, again, self-reported from individuals in recovery from the NSDA. And so we're really excited about that. We'll just share a couple quick data points from that. And one thing that our data shows us is that about 2 in 3 individuals who have ever had a mental health challenge consider themselves to be in recovery. So it's wonderful to hear that. Our data also shows about 7 in 10 individuals who have a substance use problem who have ever had that consider themselves to be in recovery as well. And so this is, we know recovery is real. And so excited to be able to present some of our NSDA data. We're actually later this month, actually next week, we'll be reporting data and sharing additional data from our NSDA that really drills down a bit further. So really excited about that and stay tuned. We'll also be sharing that virtually, so we'll be able to download that on our website. Next slide, please. So I also want to share another resource that we were so excited to be able to launch this past year as well. We know that often an individual's recovery journey, it starts with hope. It starts with that hope that recovery is real, that it is possible, that a person doesn't have to struggle with what they're struggling with alone, and that there are supports available. And so just wanted to share a little bit of information about our findsupport.gov. We did launch that earlier in the summer. And essentially what this is it's a website or a site for individuals that are early in sort of thinking about accessing services and supports. What we know is that sometimes there's a gap, right? There's a gap between when someone decides that, I think it would be helpful to talk with somebody, be helpful to get some additional support, and when a person actually connects. So what this website does is there's information about how to find support, information about how to support treatment and services, what types of treatment and services are available, again, ways to pay for services. There are wonderful vignettes as well, vignettes that talk about ways in which sort of people have navigated their own sort of wellness journey and what worked for them in terms of connecting with services and support. So help us share information about that and help us get the word out about findsupport.gov. Next slide. We know that, as Patty and Dr. Gupta and others mentioned, and you all certainly know because you're steeped in this work in so many ways. Last year we did do our recovery challenge, recovery innovation challenge. It was so wonderful to be part of the judging panel. It was hard work to be able to select winners for that, but just want to share a little bit of the work for some of the folks that were within the top 10 and are continuing to do really, really important work. Helping to connect people to needed services and supports and really walking alongside folks as they're on their recovery journey. So for example, in Nevada, Nevada is running a warm line and teen peer support line. And they have ultimately through that support, again, young people assisting young people, nothing like that, but they have reduced the need for a higher level of care. And so the young people know that they are not alone and they can connect through the Nevada warm line. Also in Texas, there's holistic care that is across the care continuum. And they are really taking a holistic approach to services and supports. And we know how important that is, to take a total person approach. So to not just think about signs and symptoms, but also, wellness overall. And so the the Texas team is doing that as well. And then in New York, there's a team there that's working on employment services and treatment for justice-involved individuals. And again, taking a total person approach, reducing the likelihood that individuals are connecting again with justice systems and supports. And again, letting people know that they are not alone in their recovery. Let's go to the next slide, please. Also wanted to share some of our grants, again, that are about individuals in recovery, working with and assisting other individuals in recovery. And so many of you either in the room or even who are joining us online may be grantees that are currently implementing some of these grants. And so I just have to say I applaud you. I applaud the work that you're doing because it is making a meaningful difference in people's lives. Know that we see you. We so appreciate the partnership, and we are excited about continuing to take that partnership to the next level. So I want to talk about B Corps. So B Corps is our Building Communities of Recovery grant. This grant funds a broad range of recovery support services. Again, individuals in recovery, assisting other individuals in recovery, funds a broad range of, for example, recovery coaching, peer support services, activities and trainings to reduce stigma, increase awareness about Narcan, for example, and the value of Narcan. We have 35 grantees that were awarded in 2023. And so far, the grantees have worked with 2,662 individuals. And so just want to really give them a hand because that is truly about helping individuals to achieve and move into long-term recovery and to know that they are not alone. Also want to talk about our RCSP program, so Recovery Community Support Programs. Similar to the other program, this program is about individuals in recovery, working with other individuals in recovery and implementing a broad range of services and supports. So, for example, employment services and supports, recovery coaching, recovery housing. The wonderful thing about this grant is it's pretty flexible. In terms of what can be funded from a recovery perspective, family support services, and you'll see some of the metrics there. So really excited and just want to commend and congratulate the individuals who are helping to implement and do that really, really important work. Next slide. Want to talk about a couple resources that we recently released. So we did release, actually just last week, so this is fairly hot off the presses, but released our recovery housing standards. And so this is a set of, 11 standards related to recovery housing. So things like, person-centered. We know, again, that it's so important to be person-centered, to treat people with dignity and respect, to have, to look at equity and to incorporate equity, to look and consider co-occurring approaches and illness, to the importance of certification. So all of these, I won't go through all of them now, but do check this guide out. It is on our website now. And again, it's best housing, best practices, and suggested guidelines. Next slide, please. Also want to talk about our national model standards for peer certification. This also came out earlier in the year. Do check this out as well. Again, 11 standards around peer certification, training programs and models. And so this is available. We can also provide any technical assistance or training for individuals who are looking to implement these standards. And so certainly reach out and let us know if you need any support or assistance there. This also is available on our website. Next slide. Wanted also now to share a little bit of information. We know, as we talked about earlier, that recovery journeys are complex. It can be complex. And sometimes an individual sort of reaching out to get support, that first step saying, I need help, I need assistance, can be so life-changing. And so through our 988 Suicide Prevention Crisis Lifeline, we now are at a little bit past now, actually, the 1-year mark. And so just want to share some of the information there in terms of what we're seeing. One thing that we've seen is about 5 million contacts have come in. So whether it be through calls, texts, or chats. And so that lets us know that, people really see this as a valuable resource. And that is heartening. It's heartening to see that. We've been hearing just really heartening stories, touching really, around the ways in which the Lifeline is making a meaningful impact in people's lives. And I'll just share one real quickly. Was in a meeting earlier in the year, and a person who actually works at one of the call centers said, we had a situation happen that we really just want to share because it's an example of why we need this Lifeline. She said that there was a young person that Googled how to harm herself painlessly. And thankfully, what came up on Google was 988. Thankfully, right? And so the person called 988 and she was able to get assistance. She was able to get the help that she needed. And at the end of the call, she told the caller, and really such a gift for the caller, really, but she told the caller, I'm so glad I didn't get what I looked for. In fact, I got what I needed. And so, just want to share that. And I so, thank you. Thank you. If there are any folks that are joining us that are part of those call centers, thank you so much for that work that you're doing. And I know that there are many partners here in the room who've really helped us really get to this moment. This is one of those projects where, we say that it takes a village. It has truly taken a village to sort of get to this point, from collaboration at the federal, the local, the state, and we really see that just continuing to continue to be able to ensure that people get connected to the services and supports that they need. And again, a person can call 988, they can text 988, or they can chat through 988lifeline.org. So real quickly, next slide, please. Just want to share a couple of resources. So moving forward, we do have a number of resources that will be coming out in the coming year. For example, we have a report, Financing Peer Support, Opportunities to Enhance Substance Use Disorder and Peer Workforce. That will include a state-by-state analysis. And so certainly excited to be able to put that out later this year. We'll also be doing a guide that looks at peer respite services and doing a state-by-state analysis there. For peer respite programs, and we'll be summarizing that in a report. And then you'll see also we're currently working on a project, the last project there, where we're looking to develop sort of standards of care, sort of guidelines, recommended guidelines for substance use treatment. And so that will come out later this year as well. So stay tuned for those materials. And next slide, please. And lastly, I just want to end with, next week, again, we'll release our NSDA report, and so that'll be a report where we summarize some of the NSDA data, really honing in and looking at individuals in recovery. So I'm excited to be able to share some of those findings. And then finally, on September 30th is a Mobilized Recovery Day of Service. And so that is an opportunity to sort of get involved, to participate in volunteer activities, or to start your own activity. That is a nationwide initiative that we're working on, and really pleased to be able to partner with the Mobilized Recovery team and Ryan Hampton. And so just wanted to share those two. And then last but not least, I'm so thrilled that we actually have our own QR code now. And so if you go to the QR code, you can get linked up to our recovery resource toolkit. And it includes screensavers and all kinds of really useful content. And you folks know I love these clearly I don't get out much, but these QR codes they're so fun, and will link you just to a wealth of information about recovery. So again, thank you everyone so much for being with us, whether you're here in person or online. Thank you to Faces and Voices team, and happy Recovery Month.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delphin Rittman, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. Your valuable perspectives adds another layer to the complexities and triumphs within the field of recovery. As we digest both this food and the thought-provoking insights that have been provided thus far, you'll start to see our servers trickle in to exchange perhaps some lunch with one of my favorite items in the world, dessert, and perhaps even one of my more favorite items, coffee. So please, let's take the next few minutes. We're going to allow you to actually chew your food, take a moment, mingle with one another, and we'll pick back up in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes with our next guest speaker. Thank you. And in order to kick things off, Why don't we start with a moment of silence for those that we've lost to this illness who may not have had access to the resources that we're desperately trying to create and increase here today. So if you'll entertain me with a moment of silence that may or may not be dual purposed to make sure that everyone is quiet. So, moment of silence. Thank you. I was speaking with a friend last night who identified that they had a loved one that had just passed from a preventable overdose death, and it's shocking to continue to see people that are harmed in our community from something that is preventable. And I encourage you all, as we leave today, to continue not only celebrating recovery, but doing the work that you do day in and day out that makes all of that possible. And so, as we transition to our next speaker, who has been an enormous supporter and advocate within the recovery community, described as a visionary and transformational leader, policymaker, and healthcare innovator, Arthur C. Evans, Jr., PhD, is CEO of the American Psychological Association, the leading scientific and professional organization representing psychology within the United States. With over 146,000 researchers, educators, clinicians, consultants, and students as APA members, a top priority of Evans' current work is applying psychological science and knowledge to a wide range of complex societal issues. Previously, for over 2 decades, Evans served in public policy positions in Philadelphia and Connecticut, where he led the transformation of their behavioral health systems and their approaches to serving a wide range of individuals with complex needs. Evans has employed science, research, community activism, spirituality, traditional clinical care, policy, and cross-system collaborations to change the status quo around behavioral health and recovery. Over the years, he's received national and international recognition, including prestigious awards in government, healthcare, visionary leadership, actionable advocacy, equity, and social justice. Of this recognition, Evans is particularly proud to have been the 2013 recipient of the Lisa Moher Torres Award from Faces and Voices of Recovery. Please help me welcome Dr. Arthur Evans.
Good afternoon. Thank you. You all know that I'm Baptist and you got to talk back to me. So thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, events like this, I can't help but think about some important people have been important in my life as an administrator, as a clinician, and so forth. And I just wanted to acknowledge them because as I look around the room, I see friends from over many years, 20, 30 years in the room. And we don't get to where we are in life without people who help us. And so I want to just acknowledge a couple of people. And the first person is Tom Kirk. Tom Kirk was the commissioner of the Connecticut system, and I happened to be his deputy. But Tom was the first commissioner in the country to say, we're going to have a recovery-oriented system of care, and that we are going to work towards that. And the significance of that is that Tom understood that if we really wanted to help people, that we could have great clinicians, we could have good services, recovery-oriented services, we could have even good organizations. But if we didn't have a system that was built on the idea that everything that we do, every decision that we make has to be geared towards recovery and healing of people, that it wasn't going to work. And so I think we owe a great deal of gratitude for Tom and his vision and my personal uh, indebtedness to him for having worked with him. Unfortunately, Tom passed during the pandemic, and he's no longer with us, but just a great, great person. The other person is Bill White, and I know in this audience, everyone knows who Bill White is, right? Bill, phenomenal individual, but Bill did something for our field that I think we are still reaping the benefits of. He was able to articulate what we did, not just a philosophy, but what we were doing, the things, the practices that we needed to do if we really wanted to help people. And I had the good fortune of working with Bill both in Connecticut and in Philadelphia, and it made a huge difference in the work that we were able to do there and the work that Bill has been able to do across not only the United States, but across the world. So I want to just acknowledge Bill for his work. And then there are many other people in this room and in Philadelphia and in Connecticut, CCAR and Connecticut, PROACT and Pennsylvania, organizations that are focused on recovery that I will tell you that I would not have been able to do a tenth of what I was able to do if it weren't for the voice of people in recovery. So I just want to acknowledge folks before I make a few comments. I want to talk about 3 people who had a huge impact on me, and I think they gave us some lessons that might be helpful for us. Are you all with me? Thank you. I see that's a good audience, right? So y'all know I'm Baptist, right? All right. So first person is right after I finished my training, I was in New Haven, Connecticut, and I was hired as the clinical director of a new medical detox. We didn't even have a building. I was the 3rd person hired. We didn't have a building. We were trying to get this detox up, and our executive director, a woman named S. Rahman, another person who I am greatly indebted to, said to the people in that part of the state that we were going to have this program and it was going to be an entryway into the system. And, because of things like NIMBY, we weren't able to open the doors when we wanted to. And so what she said was, why don't we get relationships with the current detoxification centers around the state? And what we'll do is we will go out, we'll identify people. If we can't get them into our building yet because it's not open, we're going to get them into other buildings, other programs around the state. So we started doing that. And I'll never forget this gentleman. I don't remember his name, but I remember his face, who we engaged. And the first time we engaged him, clearly had a very significant addiction problem. We said, we got this program, we got the bed ready. All you have to do is get on the van and we'll take you there. Well, he said, yeah, but I got some business to take care of. And I know you all know, when you're active in your addiction, you ain't taking care of a lot of business. But when it's time for treatment, all of a sudden you got a lot of business to take care of. So he wouldn't go. So we see him again. We get him to get on the van. He gets on the van, goes to the program, leaves after a few hours. See him again, gets on the van, goes, he stays a day or two, leaves again. See him again, he gets on the van, goes about almost to complete the detox, but he doesn't take the referral. And so this pattern goes on for several weeks where he's making inches towards finally getting on the van, completing the detox, taking the referral, going to the treatment program, and finishing. And I am so glad that I had that experience early in my career, because what it taught me was that we never, ever should give up on people. Never. It's why we have to work so hard at issues like parity. How many of you know that right now the Biden administration has a proposed rule to really enforce the parity laws? Just raise your hand. Like, everyone in this room should know that, because if we don't have parity in the way people with addictions and mental health issues are treated, we're never going to get what we need. No one would ever say to someone who had a heart attack, Mr. Smith, this is the 3rd time you've had a heart attack. I think you've had enough opportunities here. But we do that in addiction all the time. And so those are the kind of things that we have to deal with. The second person is a woman that I'm going to call Vicky. I met her when I was doing a really small case management program. And Vicky was probably only about 21, 22. She had 4 boys at that point. She had a really long history of addiction, of trauma. And her boys, when you saw them, they just weren't really kempt. They weren't clean. They were, the technical term would be, for those of you who are parents, bouncing off the walls when you saw them. And for those of you who were around in the 90s, you will remember some of the headlines during the crack epidemic. And the worst one was crack baby. How many of you remember that? Right? Crack baby, right? And so the narrative with that title was women who have babies and expose their children in utero to cocaine are horrible people. They need to have their children taken away from them, and they are committing child abuse. We either need to lock them up and or take their children away. Y'all remember that? Now, here's the problem. You had a narrative that led to bad policy. Fortunately, there was a researcher in the field at the time who said, I don't know if this is true. And then here's what happened. Those children that were bouncing off the walls, not, just having a really hard time, unkept. Well, Vicky got into treatment, got into recovery, and all of the stuff that we saw with those children went away. So this idea that these women were causing irreparable damage to their children was just not true. The truth was, when we gave her what she needed, what was treatment, all of those issues went away. So here's the thing for us. We cannot allow narratives that demonize people who have addictions. You just can't do it, because it leads to policies that hurt people, that allow people not to get what they need. The third person that I want to recognize is Sade Ali. How many of you know Sade? I know a number of people in here know. Really, again, wonderful, wonderful person, had a huge impact on my life. So Sade and I ended up at a medication-assisted treatment program. I was the director. She came over and she was a director for counseling. And if you work in those programs, at least back in the day, when people were not doing good, they would be administratively discharged. Now, I didn't really like that, but that was kind of the policy, and we were trying to figure out how to get through that. And Sade believed very strongly in culture and the impact and the power of culture. And she said, look, she was working on a master's degree. She said, look, let's take some folks who are on the list, they're 1 foot out the door, and let's see if we can come up with a program that will help keep them. Now, here's what she did that was really interesting. She said, I'm going to do a 10-week program. It's going to be all about culture. We're not going to talk about relapse. We're not going to talk about addiction. We're not going to, show them pictures of the brain. We're going to just talk about their culture and help them understand the power of their culture and how their culture can, having an understanding of their culture can make a difference in their lives. And so she did that. And all of those people who were about to be removed from the program were able to stay in the program and to really engage in their recovery. And the lesson that I learned is that, even with all the training that many of us get and those kinds of things, some of the things that have the most impact and empower for people are those things that help people understand and have the self-confidence, the understanding of themselves, and that as a system, we have to make sure that those kinds of things are as available to people as possible. The work of Faces and Voices of Recovery is so important. When I came into the field, anonymity was a way that was the way that people dealt with their recovery. It was all about anonymity. And the work that Patty, you're doing, all of the people in Faces and Voices Growing is tremendously important. Not just because of the voice. And when I was commissioner, one of the policies that I had was that we made no funding decisions without people with lived experience being at the table. Just wouldn't do it. And the reason was not only because it was the right thing to do, because we made much better decisions when we had that insight. But the other thing is that especially in our work in Philadelphia, what we saw was that people having someone to walk with them through the recovery made all the difference. And so helping people to navigate life is so important. When I was in Connecticut, we had this really, really bad snowstorm. And I'm from Florida, so I don't do well in snowstorms. And it was one of these New England snowstorms. There was about 3 feet of snow in the back of our yard. And my youngest daughter was about 4 years old. And so my youngest daughter comes to me and says, "Daddy, let's go build a snowman." Now, I'm from Florida. First of all, I've never built a snowman, but more importantly, Floridians don't believe you should play in snow. So I did what any parent would do. I tried to ignore her. How many of you have had a 3 or 4 year old in your life? Just raise your hands. How many of you think ignoring the child works? Okay. I noticed that there are no hands, right? So then, I have a PhD in psychology. So now I'm going to talk logic to my 4-year-old about why we shouldn't go in the snow. How many of you thought that worked? Okay, so again, I don't see any hands raised, right? Okay, so that doesn't work. So then I change my strategy and I say, look, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna put our clothes on, go out, make the snowman as quickly as possible, and then get back in the house where it's warm, right? I'm from Florida, right? So I do that. We get our clothes on. We're have so many clothes on. We're walking like this because it's like 5 layers. We get out, and now I've never made a snowman, but I've seen lots of snowmen, right? I watched Frosty every Christmas growing up. I saw lots of those, and so I know that there's 2 round things, right? There's a round one on the bottom, round one on the top. So I get out, I get my sticks, I get my stuff, I got that laid out, and then I start making the first round part. And so I'm getting the snow going on. And after 15 minutes, all it is a big mound, right? Because that's what happens when you just put snow like that. And so I know it's round. So I start to try to dig under the snow. So after a little while, what I had was a big mound with a trench around it. So, my daughter's kind of looking at me like, this isn't what I had in mind. So I said, okay, well, this is about as good as we're gonna get. So with the mound with the trench. So let's start on the top part, right? So now I get more snow and I put it on there. So guess what I have now? A bigger mound with a trench around it. So after about 30 minutes of this, it's cold, it's New England cold. She says, and I'm looking at her, I was like, okay, this ain't working. I'm able to convince her to go back inside. But she's 4, and she's got a big sister. So he goes to the big sister and gets the big sister to take her out now, right? We go in dejected. Then my wife comes to the window and says, after 10 minutes, honey, look, they got a snowman in the back. After 10 minutes. Now, that my little 10-year-old daughter at the time had grown up in Connecticut. And so when she finally came in, I said, well, how did you get the round thing? She said, Daddy, you have to roll the snow. Well, I'm from Florida. I didn't get that memo. And so I think for a lot of people who are active in their addiction, they don't get a lot of memos, especially if you start young. There are a lot of things you just don't learn. And one of the real powers of the recovery community is that they can help people get the memos to fill in the gaps, right? So I got to thank you for standing in the gap, helping people to get that. Later on, my daughter said, just to, put a little jug at me, she said, Daddy doesn't know how to make snowmen. He just makes snow mounds. I was like, child, come here. We have so much work to do. But we got to make sure that people get access to what they need, when they need it, how they need it, where they need it. We have to make sure that there are not narratives that make bad policy that lead to people being demonized and not getting what they need. We need to make sure that all of the services that people need are accessible, and that we don't create little boxes and say, you have to go into this box and get this. We have to give people what they need. And so I am so glad to be a part of this community. I am a part of the recovery community, right? I am all in, and I have been. And we're going to continue. I am excited about finally we are getting to the point where you have the director of ONDCP talking about peer support services. Are you kidding me? When I came in the field, they didn't know what that was, right? You got a great person. I just got to give it up to Miriam. She is just phenomenal. Can you all give her some love? I am so glad I had the opportunity to work with Miriam in Connecticut, and she's doing a phenomenal job bringing that perspective. And so, Miriam, just thank you for all your work and again, Patty, thank you for allowing me to be here. And let's keep going. We got momentum. People are paying attention to us now, and we need to push. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arthur Snowmound Evans. As we're nearing the end of our program, I'm excited to introduce our final guest speaker, another pivotal figure in the field of mental health and substance use and recovery. Donald Whitehead is a person in long-term recovery. What that means is that he's been completely free from the use of all substances for over 25 years. Due to substance use, he found himself trapped in the terrible realities of homelessness. In 1995, he completed a six-month treatment program. And since that time, Whitehead has become one of the country's leading advocates for recovery and homelessness. Donald is the executive director of the National Coalition for the Homeless, formerly the executive director of the Greater Cincinnati Coalition for the Homeless, assistant director at St. Vincent de Paul of Baltimore, program director at Ohio Valley Goodwill, grant manager at Goodwill of Greater Washington, and director of communications at Greenpeace, Ohio. Donald served 2 terms as president of the board and currently serves as a member of the board of directors for the National Coalition for the Homeless. 2 terms on the board of directors for Faces and Voices of Recovery, and 2 terms on the Georgetown Center for Cultural Competency. Join me in welcoming Donald Whitehead.
Thank you so much, Keegan. And I want to thank Patty McCarthy, who I've known for a number of years and have had the pleasure of working with on multiple projects, including a SAMHSA project where we helped people in the community identify housing and housing options. I am so grateful to be here today. I'm very lucky. Actually, on August the 25th, I celebrated 28 years of recovery. So that was a older bio. And I'm so fortunate that my clean date falls very closely to Recovery Month. So it's a whole month of celebration of recovery for me. And I wanted to, today, I am most often asked to talk about policy and legislation and things like that. So I have a couple of other titles that I want to share with you also. I founded a technical assistance company called Racial Equity Partners. I founded that with Jeff Olivet, who is currently the executive director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness. For the last 3 years, we've been helping communities address the racial inequities when it comes to the population of homelessness. So people of color are greatly overrepresented when it comes to homeless population. So African Americans represent 13% of the country's population, but 40% of the homeless population. Native Americans, there's an 8-to-1 ratio. And the largest disparity is with Hawaiian Islanders. It's actually a 9-to-1 ratio. They make up a percentage of the population in total, but 9 times that of the homeless population. So it's a very big issue. I also serve on the advisory board to the Secretary of the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. That is a quasi-government position. They call it, I don't really know what that means. But I help to advise on issues around veterans. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of my story. I think it's very important that the face and the voice of homelessness always be present in any kind of celebration of recovery. So I won't dwell on it because I learned at Faces and Voices of Recovery that we need to dwell on the recovery and not the active addiction. But I will tell you that my addiction was a result of extreme trauma. As a child, I lived in a house that was doubled up. And if you don't know what doubled up is, there were 3 families living in a house that was designed for 1 family. And I had a father who was a very happy-go-lucky fellow in the beginning. He actually worked 2 jobs, provided for his family, but he also had the disease of addiction. And because of that, he was involved in a terrible accident. So terrible that his car was wrapped around a tree in a U shape, and he left that accident with 2 scars. One was a scar on his face. His face had actually split in half, so he had this terrible scar that was very visible right down the middle of his face. But the other scar wasn't visible. It was psychological, actually. It was a scar on his heart. From that day on, he changed from a happy-go-lucky guy to an abuser. And his abuse was the first person he saw that day. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was one of my siblings, but most of the time it was my mother. And that went on for a very long time. And one of the families that lived under us was my grandfather. And it was really his house. But he could hear above his head those daily beatings. And he got so sick of those daily beatings that he confronted my father. It was a heated argument. And in front of me and all my siblings, he shot my father. And so I carried that trauma with me throughout my schooling. And despite of it, I was a straight A student. I was a straight A student for most of my for all of my elementary school, most of my high school years, until one day I picked up. And from that day on, life changed for me. Although I was able to do some things that I thought were really good, I was captain of the football team in high school. I was the prom king in high school. I was the vice president of my class, and my class voted me most likely to succeed. And I got scholarship offers from all over the country. I was a pretty good football player. I went to the University of Cincinnati, and I carried my addiction with me. And shortly, I was off the football team, and then I was off of the University of Cincinnati's campus because they did not understand the disease of addiction. I then went to the Navy, went on a world tour. My ship got to see everything, Egypt. It got to see the Middle East, the Far East, Africa. I wasn't able to get off the ship because I was considered a liberty risk because of my addiction. Somebody else had that experience, right? And so I got back to the United States after this tour, and they asked me to leave the Navy. Went back, started living the American dream, bought a home in the suburbs, got married, went through a series of decent jobs, restaurant manager, environmental activist, really good stuff, but all of them ended the same way because of the disease of addiction. And finally, I ended up losing every one of those things, and I became homeless. But it wasn't like you see on TV. It wasn't the traditional homelessness. I didn't live in an abandoned building or under a bridge or in a park, none of that stuff. I lived doubled up with a friend or a family member or sometimes a church member, but each one of those people came to the same conclusion that my disease was too much for them to handle, and I was asked to leave. And finally, I ended up in the traditional homelessness. I lived under bridges, and I lived in abandoned buildings, and I lived in abandoned cars. And it was really horrible. And 2 things I remember about my homelessness: I was lonely all the time. People passed me on the street. People walked up to me, but no one ever asked me my name or said hello or made any contact, so it was very lonely. And I was also very hungry. I didn't know about soup kitchens or shelters, so I did whatever I had to do. Sometimes I shoplifted. Sometimes I panhandled. Sometimes I even had to dumpster dive. I did whatever I could do to survive. And finally, someone did talk to me. It was another homeless person. He told me where I could find a couple of things: shelter, food, and a place to sleep. And I went there, and it was a place called the Drop-In Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. 200 people in a room like this, on mats on the floor about 6 inches apart from each other. Not a very comfortable existence. Most of the people were in active addiction. But I was there for about 30 days, and someone shared with me that although my disease is incurable, it's progressive, and it's fatal if not arrested, there was a chance for treatment for my disease, and it was right there at that shelter. So I enrolled in a program for 6 months. I got clean, and I started life over again. And I wanted to go back to some of the things I had done in the past. But after seeing families and children and people with mental health issues in that shelter, I couldn't walk away, so I became an advocate. And so I've worked in programs from outreach to executive director in cities all over this country. I've housed tens of thousands of people. I've created multiple programs. I worked in Cincinnati, and then I moved on to DC as the executive director of the National Coalition for the first time. And the National Coalition is actually the oldest advocacy group that works on homeless issues. If anybody has had a program where they got funding through the McKinney-Vento Act, the National Coalition for the Homeless drafted that legislation. If you had a child in the school system and you used a homeless education liaison, that program was created by the National Coalition for the Homeless. So I'm very proud of our work. And so my work has afforded me the opportunity to help others. I've had some opportunities I would never have dreamed of having. They include meeting or talking with 4 presidents of the United States. Actually worked on the campaign of the last president as a private citizen, though. I just want to say that. Did not use my organization, so I helped the Biden transition team shape their homeless policy. I've been able to meet in person President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary, most members of Congress over the last 15 years I've had the opportunity to meet, and really grateful for that. I've been able to do some creative things. I've actually made I've made 8 movies. I've actually won a regional Emmy for one of those movies. I've gotten to speak at the United Nations, at the White House, and at the United States Congress. So I say all that not as, I know I'm not bragging about what's happened with me. I just want people to know that there are no limitations to people when you're in recovery. And it's not about the positions, because Booker T. Washington says something I truly believe, that success should not be judged by one station in life, but the obstacles they had to overcome to get here. And we know very clearly that those of us in recovery have gone through many obstacles, many chilling and traumatic experiences, but there are no limits to what we can do in this world. And I truly believe that we went through those things because a higher power believed that we were the people that could lead other people through it. I truly believe that today. And so I'm going to shift, because I do have to talk about policy, because that's my job. And so the National Coalition, we have a campaign called the Bring America Home Now campaign. And I want to say my time on the board at Faces and Voices taught me a lot about what is most important when it comes to advocacy and movements in this country. I should have known it, because it's the only thing that's helped in the triumphs that we've had in other movements. It's the involvement of people with lived experience, whether it's the lived experience of recovery or lived experience of mental health or homelessness. Unfortunately, many people with mental health issues or substance abuse issues end up on the streets of this country. You heard statistics about the jail population. The majority of those that go there because of issues with drugs are there because of their use or possession of drugs. So we have a war on drugs, and it's really a war on drug users. We really need to find a way to change the things, because housing and substance abuse are inextricably linked. We have to make sure that when people do their time, when they leave the criminal justice system, they have a place they can call home. It's really incredibly hard to recover on the streets of any city in America. Right now, homelessness is growing unabated. We have more people living on the streets of this country than we have in shelters. We do not have enough housing. We do not have enough facilities for people to get treatment, and that's what I need your help to do. So today, if you could, please go to our website, www.nationalhomeless.org. I need you to sign up and help us to move this country to stop criminalizing homelessness. There's 68 cities where it's illegal to sleep. It's illegal to stand. It's illegal to drink in public, or it's illegal to do something that you have to do biologically in public, even though we don't have public restrooms. So it's very important that if we are to change the trajectory of addiction in this country, we have to do something about housing. People have to leave mental health facilities with a place that they can lay their head, and we can do that together. So we're working on a campaign to address criminalization of homelessness. Again, 168 cities, 13 states have laws that make it illegal to be homeless, and we need your help to do that. But we need to continue to fight. You heard some really good statistics about some of the programs that are in place. I've learned from Faces and Voices about the value of peer support. We're moving to do peer support programs within the homeless population as well. I just created something called the Lived Experience Training Academy that's helping people become leaders. And so I know my time is up, but I get really excited when I get to talk about recovery and myself. So some of the stuff that got me here is still here, but I really appreciate all of you. I really appreciate Faces and Voices and the amazing work you do and the leaps and bounds we've seen when it comes to the discussion of peer support, the need for preventive measures when it comes to substance abuse. And please keep fighting with Faces and Voices. Thank you so much for being here. May you have a blessed and wonderful recovery month, and keep coming back. Thank you very much.
A powerful and enticing afternoon this has been. As we've heard from so many great speakers, and as we begin to transition to our next event, the recovery walk that we've partnered with SAMHSA to be able to host, I want to talk about just a couple items. One, housekeeping. So when you leave here, because I know I'm going to lose your attention momentarily, when you leave here, we're going to meet in the circle just outside Union Station. So that's where the recovery walk is going to begin. So 2:30, be there. If you're joining us for the recovery walk, which we invite you all to do, please make sure that you stop by the registration desk on your way out to get a purple wristband that lights up to showcase your recovery month efforts. So 2:30, make sure you're at the circle. If you're not at the circle at 2:30, we may leave without you. So what we've heard today is some really incredible speakers talking about what it looks like to show up for recovery and what it looks like to celebrate all month long. I want to ensure that the next round of individuals that have an opportunity to access treatment, to access recovery services, or whatever else that they may need, are available or alive in order to access that, and so that they can be here with us next year to experience Recovery Month alongside us. And so let's continue to work together to make that possible. And we need all of your helps to be able to do that. And it's with this effort that we celebrate, we observe this month, we take time to remember those that have passed, those that we experience collectively together, and we rejoice in their path to health and wellness. Because when we talk recovery, we're really talking about individuals having an opportunity to gain or regain health and wellness. And that exists as a direct result of the work that you all do day in and day out. So, Recovery Month needs your help. And in order to do that, we would love for you on the back of your agenda, if you're like, Keegan, where's my agenda? It's the thing that you received when you got here. We would love for your continued support and contribution to be able to make that possible. So Recovery Month is something that we want to see continue for years to come. And so by scanning that QR code, you have an opportunity to make that donation in order for that to exist. So we have some time before 2:30, because remember 2:30 circle. Please, I just want to thank you all for participating today in today's discussion. Let's get a round of applause for everybody in here, our speakers, our sponsors. Thank you again to SAMHSA, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, Dr. Evans, Donald Whitehead. We're so very appreciative. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you at the Recovery Walk, 2:30.